Hi guys and welcome back to a new video. In today's video, I will be talking about Mr. Pandora Remix and I will go through all the different updates that have been made to the game in the past few hours. And as you will see, some of them are really interesting. These will include a lot of different nerfs and also some free bronze that you will be able to get on all your different characters. So the first very important update is the fact that Blizzard finally decided to nerf all the different people who did some proc farming during the first 3 days of the event. So as you can see in this blue post, they recognized that by doing this farm, all these different players got an unfair advantage compared to all the rest of the player base. And so for that reason, they're gonna nerf their different stats on their cloak in order to try and make sure that this is a little bit more fair to the rest of the player base. So the way they nerfed all these players is by simply tracking all the different players who got an unreasonably large amount of kills on these different procs, and then they're dropping all the stats on their cloak. So as you can see, all these different proc farmers have now only 2,500 of each stat on their cloak and 25,000 stamina, which is basically what Blizzard considers as something reasonable that normally you should have been able to achieve by now in the game. So another interesting aspect of this nerf is that for everyone that did not take advantage of the frog farming, Blizzard is providing 40,000 bonus bronze that you will be able to get each time you reach level 70 with a new character. So as you can see, you will basically have 3 different quests. The first one will reward you with 3,000, the second one 7,000, and the third one 30,000. And basically, when you reach level 70, you can get all the different quests done at the same time, or you can also just do them while you're leveling. But so it means that on any of the characters that you will level up, you will be able to get 40,000 bronze for free. So as you can see, in order to get these different bronze, you just want to come here in the Jade Forest. You will have this icon on the map that will say the Infinite Growth quest. And so again, normally when you will reach level 70, you will be able to then complete the 3 quests in a row. And like that, you will receive 40,000 bronze for free. So I do think this is a really interesting change that Blizzard is making. And I think now it's pretty clear that in order for you to get a lot of bronze, probably one of the easiest way is simply going to be leveling up a bunch of alts and each time getting these 40,000 bronze for free that you will be able to get just by completing these different quests. So this is again something that I think is good and I definitely think a lot of people are happy with it. I just think they could have done some of these changes way earlier when players were still not too unhappy with how the game is going right now. But I'm just gonna take it and I think this is still something positive overall. Next to that, another interesting nerf is the new Hyperspawn farm, the Wildfeather cranes. So this is another farm that players were using in order to get some of the lesser charm of good fortune and some bronze and threats. And as you can see, it just got nerfed. So I think it's pretty clear that really Blizzard doesn't want you to do any of these Hyperspawn farms, and they really want you to get bronze and threads and everything by doing all the other activities linked to the game, such as doing dungeon scenarios, raids, and other type of activities such as quests. And so I think any type of Hyperspawn that players are gonna find probably will be nerfed as soon as Blizzard will realize that they're too OP and that players are using them in order to get a lot of bronze. Which again, I think is not really a good idea because if people want to spend like a few hours and just doing intense grinding in order to get a lot of bronze, I think they should be able to do it, especially because all these different farms were available back in Mr. Pandaria. And I just think again, you should not force players to do specific activities in order to get some rewards and then just complete, let's say, the game. So in my opinion, this is not really something that I think is good. But anyway, apparently Blizzard is planning to ban and nerf all these different Hyperspawn farms. Another very interesting change that Blizzard decided to make to the necklace, rings, and trinkets in this event is the fact that now when you unlock them, they will be unlocked for all the different characters in your account. So I think this is something really good because basically before that you had to each time do all the different achievements and everything in order to unlock these different items on each of your alts, which I think was pretty bad and something that took just way too long for a lot of players. And so at least now it means that each time you unlock them on one character, then you will be able to go and buy them directly on all your different alts, which I think makes a lot of sense. And overall, this is a big W, in my opinion, from Blizzard. Now, another interesting change is the fact that healer threat has been nerfed in this event. So it means that normally when you are healing and everything, as you can see, your threat reduction is increased by 95%. Before that, it was 75%. So I think this is a pretty good change again, because at least it kind of guarantees that when you're playing a healer in either a raid or a dungeon or any groups, you will be able to just heal without having the aggro and without dying. So I think this is overall a pretty good change. It's not as important maybe as some of these other very interesting changes that happened, but still something that I wanted to mention, because especially if you're someone playing a healer and you want to do some of the ratings and all these type of group activities, at least now you can know that you won't die simply because you're too good at healing. So now I just want to talk a little bit more about the big nerf that was made to people who enjoyed frog farming and just share my opinion. So I do think that this is something that Blizzard should have done already for quite some time, because it did create a really unfair advantage compared to all the other players who were just enjoying the game by doing the normal activities that Blizzard actually intended players to do. But in my opinion, this issue should have never happened in the first place, because people were aware about this farm and they actually tried it and then reported on it during the PTR phase, and Blizzard didn't do anything. And it's not like this farm was a new thing. Even back in Mist of Pandaria, people were already doing it and Blizzard left it like that. And so I do think that if they just decided to listen to the community and just the feedback from the PTR, they could have removed all these different things, make sure that no one was going to be able to do these different hyperspawns in the first place. And so like that, you wouldn't have some people just trying to be as powerful as possible and then doing these different farms to get then nerf and probably very annoyed. And in general, I think it just created a very bad mood for everyone else, because it just made this event so unbalanced. And so this is again something that Blizzard should have really done ahead of time, and we could have avoided this entire situation. Also, I think it's important to just recognize that this was not an exploit or anything bad. Players knew about this, players were able to test it during the PTR phase, and so when they started to do it in the live version, they probably just thought, well, if Blizzard decided to leave it like that, it's probably intended and we can definitely farm it. Especially, remember that Blizzard did say that the whole point of this event was for you to become ridiculously OP and powerful, and that you could even then solo raids and do this type of things. So I don't think players thought it was an exploit or something bad, and they just played the game. And so now having all these different players being punished for basically just doing what players were already doing back in Mist of Pandaria, I think is kind of absurd. And I'm sorry, but don't tell me these different players are still gonna keep playing when they were super, super powerful and now they're basically back at stage 1. I don't think this is overall really a good thing. Again, I do understand why they did it, and I do think it's going to bring a little bit more balance to the game. But in my opinion, this is really unfair to all these different players. And keep in mind, one thing I forgot to mention is the fact that all these different players, of course, won't be able to get this quest simply because they have been flagged as frog farmers. And so they won't be able to get the 40,000 bronze on each of their new characters, or at least on all the different characters that they use for frog farming. Also, another thing that I've seen in a lot of comments is just the fact that a lot of players apparently said they got their cloak nerfed and they don't have access to the quest, even though they barely killed any frogs and they were not taking part in all these different farms. So I think there is also an issue in terms of how exactly Blizzard decided to select all these different players and categorize them. And even next to that, I've also seen a lot of players saying that while they did a lot of frog farming and have very powerful cloaks, they still haven't been nerfed and they were able to get the 40,000 bronze quest. So I think overall this is a little bit messy, and I do think, of course, it's not super easy to implement this type of changes. But again, I think the main point I want to make is the fact that, again, we could have avoided all of that if Blizzard simply listened to the community, to the feedback, and didn't include these different hyperspawn at the start of the event. So anyway, I really hope this is going to be a good lessons learned for Blizzard, especially if they're planning to do more of these remix events. And next time, I really hope they will make sure that if they don't want you to farm the currency or farm powers and everything through specific ways, they will make sure that these different specific ways are nerfed at the beginning and not wait for people to spend a lot of time on it and then get nerfed a little bit, in my opinion, unfairly. Let me know in the comments what you think about this change, if you're happy or not, and overall what you think about the event. I do think this event had a lot of potential and still has some potential, but I really do think the poor execution from Blizzard just from these few mistakes is really ruining it for a lot of people. And in the end, it just again brings a bad energy to the event overall, and it could have been avoided very easy. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today's video. I will be back very soon with more guides and more videos, and in the meantime, I wish you all a great weekend. Bye!